Hey, today we're going to be tying some Dahlberg Style Deer hair divers. And the quickest one to get through is going to be a rabbit strip. And this is for pike, muskie, largemouth bass, saltwater. The start is we're going to do a weed guard and kind of a loop for the tail that you see like on tarpon flies to keep the rabbit strip from fouling with the hook. And start winding this on top, binding it to the top of the hook shank. And try to keep it positioned on top. And some folks like to really make this stick. They can either burn or crimp the end of the mono so it can't pull out. But for the sake of this fly, we're just gonna go with it. And I'm taking it pretty far down the bend here of the hook.
Yeah, and this has got to be what, 40-pound test?
Yeah, 40, 50, 60. Anything hard and thick enough to kind of try to keep the weeds off. So you're just going to let that kind of ride. The next step is to take a loop of mono and create kind of what they do on tarpon flies. The back of the fly has a little rounded butt that's going to keep the tail from wrapping around the bend of the hook. So we're going to try to put a little piece of the same mono you use for the weed guard. Winding it down. And you have this little butt sticking off the back. And you wind it back down the other side. You want to make sure it doesn't twist on you. You really need to cinch that down. The next step is tying the rabbit strip. For pike, muskie, big baits, I want to have big rabbit strips. So this is kind of the tail of the fly. You need to work into kind of tapering up to a body. So I'm going to give this a little bit of flash. I really like this Flash-A-Boo Mirage. It's just radically colorful and bright in the water. It just be 3 or 4 strands. I'm going to put them going most of the way back, and then I'm actually going to tie it in kind of double, so I have a little bit of shorter strands up front. So there's our flash, just a few strands, not a lot. And then you need a little bit of marabou to kind of build into the deer hair head. And you can do this with blood quills, you can do it with woolly bugger marabou. It's kind of up to you which you prefer. It's kind of based on the size of the fly. Woolly bugger marabou works on a smaller fly. I think you need the blood quills for the bigger one. Kind of match it up to the size of the fly where you want it. This is done. It's time to start spinning deer hair. And there are people who probably do this much more effectively than I do, but when I'm tying for big, toothy bait fish, or big, toothy, predatory fish, I don't really care how pretty these are because they're not going to last more than a couple of fish. So I'm going to make these as effective as possible and not as time-consuming as possible. So I've got some yellow deer belly hair. Deer belly hair is the best for spinning. I think people also like antelope, but I think deer belly hair, dyed deer belly hair is the way to go. I've got a little clump here. I'm going to pull out short fibers and some of the fuzz. I don't really stack my deer hair prior to wrapping it in. This is a natural kind of clump this on top. And you want about half of, right in the middle, I guess, of the clump. You want to take your loose thread wrap.
Are you on bare hook now, or are you on thread
now?
No,
I'm on thread now.
Okay,
and this one doesn't spin quite the same as the other one. So I'm just kind of clumping what's kind of just a collar, a piece of deer hair that's going to butt up against the rest of the materials. Now we're going to actually kind of start spinning it a little bit, and in the next couple of wraps here for this all the way forward, we're going to spin a little bit of hair. And there's 2 ways to really push this back, make it as dense as possible. One is with your fingers. That's Rob Russell style, and I'll be showing you that here in a minute. And the other is with a deer hair stacking tool, which is one of these. We've got them at the shop. I was taught to use these as a kid, but I've kind of come around to Rob's way of thinking on it lately.
Packing.
Packing, that's right. How to pack your deer hair. So you just put this stack of hair right next to the first one. A couple of loose wraps, tie it down, and then you spin. And sometimes it spins more than others. This one didn't spin that much. That's fine. So I'm just going to pack it with my hand. Twist it around, push it around. It helps fill in the gaps where you didn't have it. And you're going to put the next wrap of thread right in front of that one. So we're going to do that down the whole shank of the hook. A hair here we've been stacking for a little bit. Doesn't make for a very entertaining video. See? One more. And this isn't something to do, on your wife's nice couch. Like you can see, I'm kind of covered in deer hair. It's about to get a lot uglier, in fact. So I'm going to do one more stack. Get out the shop vac, folks. Working towards just having as much density jammed in here as possible. And I think we're there. So I got my whip finish tool, hold the fibers back, and then whip them. And we're going to really finish it off after we do the trimming. Take it off the vise. You've got a giant fur ball. Here it is. This thing is huge. You've got your weed guard still to tie in, but you've got to trim this first before you can tie in the weed. I start on the bottom because that's the easiest place to start. And there are different razors and tools you can use. I've just got what's essentially just a shop knife razor. We're gonna take it across the bottom and just shave off that whole bottom section. So that's the way I like to start. In line with the eye of the hook. Start cutting across, shaving it back. You take this all the way back to the bend of the hook, to where the deer hair starts to peter out. And this shape, this flat on the bottom shape, is what's going to help it really dive well, make it. Give it a little bit of a flat bottom there with a sharp razor. You want to make sure you get it off as laterally to the sides as you can. Make sure it's all nice and flat. And that's the first step. So you've got a flat bottom. That's what you have. And then I like to take a look at the front of the hook. And I like to work in from small and then work out to the flared out. Making a little like square right around the eye of the hook of where I want my start. And I work in this in the three sides. That's kind of how I like to work on it. So the first side, I'm just going to flare, follow the contours of what I think the diver shape should be. And that's kind of a triangle or a pyramid. And I start taking it out slowly. But the main thing is you just need it to be small to a fat flared collar. It doesn't really matter how prettily shaped it is. As long as it flares out, it's going to dive. So now that I've got this trimmed the way that I want it, you can see it, and I'll put it up against the shirt here. It's a good taper to a flare. That's the main thing you're looking for, is a kind of a triangle tapered out to a flared shape. This back in the vise, I'm going to attach the weed guard, and I'm going to make the lip that's going to make this thing dive. That's what I want to do, is put a little bit of glue on the front of the collar to make it really pop, to make it really dive. So I'm going to take my Zappa Gap and kind of just edge around the first line of deer hair and kind of glom it a little bit together, right? So you've got a stronger diving lip. And what I want to do with the weed guard is bring it through the eye of the hook. And this is why you want a big-eyed hook for these flies. Not just because you're going to be casting with maybe some big big lines to hold up to the teeth of the fish, but also because you're going to be doing this with a weed guard typically. And you want to try to even it up as much as you possibly can to tie it down. We're going to feed this back out. And you're really going to cinch this down once you've got it where you want it. We're going to tie it off, cut it off here. And then we're going to hit it with the glue and a lot of thread wraps to make sure it stays where we want it. And this is basically a finished fly now. Ready to catch a big pike, muskie, or Florida bass.